We are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Show Must Go On line. Today's guest is Jared Goldsmith. How are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
Fabulous. Thank you. And thank you for coming on the series.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me today.
Yeah, it's been so much fun really diving deep into all the things you've been doing. And I mean, your music is just stunning.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad you had a chance to listen. Yeah, it's my first time ever releasing music. And it's been really a cool past few
Stunning.
weeks. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad you had a chance to listen. Yeah, it's no, I'm my
getting
first time ever releasing music.
Are you also
it's been-
playing the
it's been
YouTube
really
video
a
by
cool
chance?
past few weeks. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad you had a chance to listen. Yep, there it was.
We love it. We
You're
love
a
it.
smart cookie. You got it.
It's happened before, so
Yep.
And
It's like, there's me. Hello,
there you
Lisa.
hey. And we've got good morning, Andy. Yes, it is also morning for me over here too.
Good morning. Where are you at today?
I am currently in Washington State.
Cool. I liked the In the Heights reference. I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you.
I went to Washington State over 2 years ago. We performed in Seattle on the Evan Hansen tour at the Paramount. Really cool venue.
Ooh. Okay, so we are going to talk all about the tour, your journey.
For sure. I know, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Please, this is the best. I love it. And Lisa, hey, we appreciate anytime there's we just go with the flow here on The Show Must Go Online. It is all free flowing, don't you know?
It's like a live theatrical event. There's a hiccup, you figure it out.
Exactly. The stage manager is like saying something in your ear.
Correct. Yep.
So let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. And let's hear your origin story. What got you into theater and acting, especially at such a young age?
Yeah, for sure. I think a big moment for me was seeing my sister in Annie. She played Annie, and she was probably 10, and I was like 5. And I think that was just a big moment for me. Like I grew up watching the Carol Burnett Annie movie, and I loved it as a kid. How could you not? But I think seeing her actually perform in Annie, like a real live version, was just like, whoa, people actually do this. And eventually starting to see some shows. Some Broadway shows. I grew up in New Jersey, so not too far from the Broadway theater area. So I got to see a few shows as a kid, and was really fortunate for that. And I think I just caught the bug at some point. I think between probably seeing the Broadway production of Beauty and the Beast and Wicked when I was a little bit older, and I think eventually going to theater camp and kind of realizing this was something people did for a living. And I guess at some point around there, my sister and I both were working with a manager who we'd get a few auditions with. So I would occasionally go on a voiceover audition and occasionally do something like on Blue's Clues or a commercial here and there as a young kid. And as a kid, it's like, oh, I get to leave school and a little early and go do this fun thing. But then eventually, as I kind of did more and more of it, was slowly learning, like, oh, right, this is something that people actually do. I remember meeting the voice of Blue, who was this fully grown woman who was pregnant with a baby, and she was like, "Yeah, baby Blue's on the way." And I was like, "Wow, you're a real adult, and this is your job, and that's really cool." And I think at some point around there, it stuck with me that this is something people actually do, and it can be a sustainable career. Yes, Blue's Clues, it's a good, fun show. Obviously the original, not the reboot that's currently happening. But yeah. I think I just kind of caught that bug and realized it's something that people can actually do. And I do think that theater camp also kind of changed me and shaped me and made me really love the community of people, and being around that community and being kind of within that community. So yeah, I feel like that's the short-ish version, if that kind of makes sense.
I love it. And I do feel like it totally encapsulates your experience growing up and how, like you said, there's this theater bug in the theater community that once you see the beautiful side of it, you're like, wait, I never want to leave it.
Yeah, there's something very magical and whimsical about it all. And
yeah,
I think I get that feeling from both, the film and TV land and voiceover land, as well as the theater. But there is something really, really magical. And I think it's why I've always been driven to kind of the live theatrical Broadway side of it. I think I don't know. There's always something like I feel like I have these vivid memories of even when I'd go into the city and like it would be I'm leaving second grade early to like record something on Blue's Clues, and then I'd be like I'd look at my grandma or my mom or dad or whoever took me in that day, because I was like only 8 years old and I was tiny. I'd be like, hey, can we like go see a show or do something at night? Let's go do something. Let's go see a show. And I think I was always very attracted to that. And I don't know why. I think maybe it's just the lights or that whimsical quality, that magic. Um, but yeah, there's something about like being in the theater that always has felt right to me.
And I'm so happy to hear that, sometimes when people start so young, they kind of don't want to continue with it when they're older because it's like, oh, this was something I did for fun. And maybe I don't want to do it as a job. But for you, it sounds like it went the complete opposite way, that it was like, oh, this is something I do for fun. Ooh, I can do it for fun and have it be a job. Win-win.
Yeah, it's true. There are a lot of folks that, they either pivot, they do something completely different, or, they kind of pivot and say, oh, well, I kind of performed as a kid. I want to direct now, or I want to do this and that. But yeah, I think it's true. I did kind of just sort of go fully into it and kind of just wanted to keep immersing myself in it.
And we're so happy you did. So there's this blue theme throughout your life because Blue's
Right.
Clues, and now we've got Dear Evan Hansen.
That's right. That's right. It's so funny because one of the big things I did on Blue's Clues, they started this spinoff show called Blue's Room, and of course at the Music Box Theater they have the famous Blue Room, which was sponsored by Bloomingdale's, which I didn't even think about until you just reminded me. Yeah, there's this big blue theme, which is true. Yeah, I it's funny because I think blue has always kind of been my favorite color. I like a lot of different colors, but I do like blue a lot. I don't quite know why, but I guess it's soft on the eyes. It's easy to look at. It's pleasant.
Yeah, it's a great
Yeah,
color.
it is a great color.
That's so funny. Yeah, I was thinking, I always write these like little note cards with, like a little cheat sheet. And I was like, clearly I'm choosing the blue one today.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. I love it.
So let's dive deep into Dear Evan Hansen, because you have had such a unique journey with it that is so special. First national tour and on Broadway. I mean, let's go from like the audition process, or did you see it on Broadway beforehand? How did you find out about it?
Totally. So actually, this is a really fun fact that a few insiders might know. But my best friend, Adam Quinn, who I met at stage door at theater camp when I was younger, has been a director his life. He went to school for directing, and immediately after school, he started assisting a man named Michael Greif on a new show called Dear Evan Hansen. And he was like, hey, I'm working on this show that's really, really cool. And it's like probably the best show I've ever worked on. And I'm assisting this director who is amazing, who I've always looked up to. And, this is back when it was at second stage. It was just starting out at second stage. It was post DC, but it was at second stage. And he goes, it's my spring break on college. I'm at Elon in North Carolina, and I'm coming up to the city to see a few shows. I think that season it was like Shuffle Along and American Psycho and Bright Star and a bunch of good shows. And he says, hey, like, do you want a comp? I can get you a comp to this off-Broadway show, this new show that's happening. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to see this. Little did we know, it'd become this big, massive hit. And I'm sitting there watching this show in front of him and Michael taking notes or scratching notes. And, I'm watching this first version of Evan Hansen, the off-Broadway production, and it kind of hit me in this way I had never really been hit at a show in a really long time. And I was like, oh my gosh! And there's this character named Jared. Like, this seems like such a cool show I could end up auditioning for. At this point, I was ending my sophomore year of college, but it was really cool, kind of seeing that and not knowing for certain, but definitely knowing it was a show I could fit in certain pockets of, and it would be one that I would end up auditioning for. So when we flash forward a year and a half later, when they had announced that a first national tour was going to be launched. It was like kind of post that Tony season when they were blowing up. I had seen the notice on, I think it was on Playbill probably, that they were holding open auditions. And it was probably like the end of my fall semester senior year. So I knew that the graduation point was coming. So I figured I'd go to the open call and just kind of see what happens. Cause I figured I might as well now. Cause if I don't get to audition in the spring, or even if I do in the spring, I'd rather get in early. And I just kind of did the thing, and I made sure I was there and had my equity card ready and all that stuff. And I got seen, and I flew back to school. and it was when we were doing our senior student production of Drowsy Chaperone, and I like missed a tech rehearsal, and everyone kind of forgave me, and I kind of didn't say where I was, and that's kind of the short version of the first audition. A few weeks later, I probably got a request to come in for casting, and then again for Michael, the director, and then Adam was sitting on the other side of the table, which was also very, very cool experience. But we both kind of made sure to not look at each other, and he didn't kind of say anything, and he wanted me to kind of get it on my own, and yeah, then I did the final callback, and that was kind of it. I received the offer a few days later, and they at that point knew they wanted me to play Jared in either production. At that point they were really kind of casting or recasting, because the original cast was starting to leave the Broadway production, so they knew they kind of had to get that first round of replacements for the Broadway production and get that first cast up for the first national tour, and they knew they were launching several productions. So at that point, it was kind of like, we'll see where we want you, and ultimately they had me launch the first tour, which was such a cool experience, mainly because we all got to work together. This new cast, rather than replacing in a show, this new cast, we all got into a room, into a rehearsal room at New 42 Studios. We got to work with Michael, the director, and the book writers, Ben Justin and Stephen Levinson. We got to kind of do some table work, which is really cool. I feel like you don't do as much of that when you're replacing. Though they do tend to work very, very, very hard on when there's a new Evan in the show in any company, but for obvious reasons. But yeah, I think that was just a really special experience, kind of working in a studio and starting a production together, and then going through that tech process in Denver, teching the show, doing a few previews, and then just opening. They even worked on a few small book changes, to see if they wanted to play a few lines differently, and how they might fit. There was a lot of talk between, the differences of GoFundMe and Kickstarter and which one they should use in the show for plot points that I won't give away. But yeah, it was just really cool doing that experience, and then getting to play to, I think, 25 different cities in that first year, all cities that had never experienced this show before, except maybe DC, which had experienced it many years prior in a very different version, a probably over 3-hour version, different songs, different scenes, lots of different stuff going on. So this version, this show, unless people had visited New York, we really were visiting each city for the first time, and it was cool, being the first version of Dear Evan Hansen that these people saw, especially like when we go to LA and all these places where these like public figures and personalities and famous people, Tom Hanks coming to see the show, and it was his first time seeing it. Really wild, really, really wild, really humbling for sure. Because me just sitting there thinking, oh my God, it's Woody from Toy Story, like who I've known my whole life, or I feel like I know my whole life. So that, awesome experience. And then, yeah, doing it on Broadway with a lot of the same folks from the tour, and some of the same folks that were already in the current Broadway production at that point. So that was a cool experience as well. Again, the replacement aspect, a little bit different than the launching a new production aspect. But at that point, the few of us that were entering the show had known it so well. So to kind of step in was a lot easier. There were very few changes between the tour version and the Broadway version, other than they're in different theaters. The Broadway theater is definitely smaller. The stage is definitely a little smaller. The stage is raked on Broadway, so it's raised and tilted a little bit. So it starts to pinch at your lower back a little if you're not careful. Learning how to navigate the rake was definitely a bit of a task, but definitely got there. And yeah, I mean, it was, and then of course in the Broadway production, it was working to do the put-in rehearsals for all the new company members that were also kind of entering. So, doing Alex Boniello's last show and Andrew Barth Feldman's last show, and then doing the put-in rehearsals for David Jeffrey, who entered, and Jordan Fisher, who entered after Andrew. So it was also cool kind of doing mini rehearsal processes for them, and then doing their put-in rehearsals, which are essentially their final dress rehearsal, where they're in costume and the other actors that are currently in the show are not in costume. But it's kind of like the final way to kind of make sure they're properly placed into the show and that everything runs without a hitch or a hiccup on their opening. So that was, I feel like I just went off for a bit, but I think that's a good general overview. Feel free to ask, follow-up questions, or if anyone else has follow-up questions about some of the specifics. But yeah.
That's so cool. No, I love when a guest just takes it away, because you have so many details that I wouldn't even necessarily know to ask, because you, especially with something like this, where you have such that unique experience being on that first national tour, that is so special that you were the first company that people got to see of this Tony Award winning musical. I mean, what were some of the craziest reactions you got from fans?
Oh my, I think, performing in some of those large venues, thousands and thousands of seats, the Fox Theater in Atlanta is like almost maybe a 5,000 seat theater. Wild, it's, and for a show like Les Mis, it's, it seems very fitting. Oh yeah, you throw a giant show, Wicked, in there, and it, of course it reads. The biggest thing was, they said, look, play the show the way you would normally play it. We really believe it's going to read to the back of those big theaters, and we did. And I think it worked out. But I think the crazy response of finishing Sincerely Me, and it's like a rock concert of everyone just being like, yeah, was really, really wild, and that was a cool just tour experience, I think. And obviously seeing how different lines or scenes might play differently in specific audiences, seeing which audiences were vocal. Like I remember Minneapolis, they were big laughers, and Chicago was very like, they were kind of silent. They didn't laugh as much, but they would always stand at the end, so there were very different, and seeing just different lines play in different cities was very interesting. Yeah, I think that was kind of cool. It was almost figuring out how to play each city and how to play each house. Whereas once you kind of got to the Broadway production, settling in to that house became a little bit easier after a few weeks. It was like you really could master how to play this one house. But I think that was sort of the name of the game, of the touring experience, of kind of, that's the challenge and sort of the cool part of just navigating each city. Yeah. And the backstage traffic would be a little different in the theaters. Right. There were more quick change booths that we would have on the stage. The stage is a little larger in usually all those touring houses. But then on Broadway, the stage is so tiny that there's no space to even do quick change booths. So, and because it's set there, more people can change up in their dressing rooms. But a few of the quick changes would happen down on deck in these like tiny areas. It's like, this is your tiny designated area. And it's so tight on Broadway that it's like, stand here because this thing is coming here at this section of the show. And, I feel like on tour, there was usually more space, depending on the theater. Each theater was a little different, but typically there was more space. You can kind of spread out a little bit, make sure there's like one moment of the show in Act 2 where Evan has this chance to like run off stage real quick, use the bathroom, put on a new shirt, and then get back on stage. And like, if you're another actor or tech person, anyone back there, it's like, you do not cross that path. It's like that bathroom is his to use for that one moment, and like you do not want to get in the way at that one moment. Yeah.
Those are key moments. Some people who haven't been in theater or anything that requires you to be present without being able to leave for an hour, 2 hours, whatever, like those bathroom breaks, those water breaks, even just a sitting break potentially, like all of those moments are key and essential.
Yeah, it's true. Especially when it, becomes part of the routine. Mm-hmm. I think one of the biggest things, the Evans, any actor that says, playing, covering Evan, they always say, I have to hydrate, but if I overhydrate, I'm screwed because I'll be in the middle of words fail and I have to go to the bathroom so badly and I can't focus on anything else. And I don't know, I think I had an acting teacher once that said, it could give an actor a sense of urgency if you really have to go to the bathroom. But I think if it's too much, then you don't want to have I just didn't want to do that. Yeah. For me, I would always overhydrate. I would always drink a lot, but I had moments where I could go off stage and constantly use the bathroom. So it was fine. we're on the backstage Broadway bathrooms, the Triple B, but it's a real thing. Like you're saying, it's true.
It's true. These are the behind the scenes details people come to the series for.
Exactly. That's right.
So we're getting some really great comments here. I'm going to throw them up. Milo B saying, "Oh, love the little detail about needing a technique for working on a rake stage. That's something I wouldn't have thought about." Very true.
Yeah. And I didn't think about it I just didn't think about it when we went on tour, and they were like, yeah, I think they were considering making the rake stage for the tour, but it's really just too complicated. Most tours
Yeah.
don't tour with a rake stage. Like Wicked is raked on Broadway, but it's not on the tour. Um, I'm sure there's another one that is as well.
Yeah.
And the reason that it's raked for Evan Hansen on Broadway mostly is for the sight lines of the floor projections. We have a lot of floor
Yeah.
projections right on the stage. If you have or haven't seen the show, you recognize them. And a lot of times there's like photos of the actors that are actually projected onto the
Oh.
stage and throughout some of those like social media kind of icons that pop up on the
Yeah.
stage. It's really cool. And they have that really buttoned up, especially whenever an understudy goes on for Evan or Jared or whoever. They have those things just ready to go. But yeah, on tour the sight lines are usually pretty good because it's like a football field back. Like when we were in that Denver Center, it just was so far back that you don't really need that rake stage. You could pretty much see the floor projections anyway. But yeah, it definitely took me like a couple weeks to adjust to that rake stage. By the time we were adjusted, I felt like by the time I was adjusted, Broadway had totally shut down. But no, it's why we had physical therapy at the theater, always on tour and on Broadway, which is always really helpful, even for a show like this that doesn't have a lot of dancing. There's obviously tension, there's obviously stress in the show, so that can hit you just as hard as physical movement. And there's a little bit of pedestrian movement. It's not, I wouldn't say dancing. Of course, me coming from Elon, which is like, we have such amazing dance training there. I got into that rehearsal room just like ready to move in like You Will Be Found. And I remember the choreographer specifically looking at me being like, "Hey, you're dancing too much. Just walk. It's okay." And being like, "Oh, wow, I've never been told this before. This is so cool." So definitely putting that training to good use. And again, that's part of the technique as well, is like, knowing the balance of how much to do.
Yeah. Wow. Dancing too much on a Broadway stage. I love it.
Yeah.
That's so funny. And for anyone who just saw my pup make a little cameo, that's Slimbo. He is
I
a
love it.
co-star. He's the best. He just
Amazing.
it's a nice day out. So he was like, I'm gonna test out the couch. No, I'm gonna sit outside. So it's great.
Nice. I love it. He's adorable.
Thank you. Thank you. So Judy saying those were great details.
Great.
Cosign. Yes, yes, yes. And we've got another comment. I'm glad. I wasn't sure how much of this was going to read, but Andy says the Paramount and the Keller, those are the ones that I'm familiar with, are massive compared to Broadway. The difference is definitely there. Saw the show in both Seattle and Portland.
Oh, great. So you probably saw two different casts because Seattle was
Oh.
year one of the tour, and I believe Portland was year two, where a lot of the Toronto cast actually had joined the tour as well, which was really exciting. There was a fun crossover moment as I was leaving the tour, those final maybe 5-ish weeks, where the new cast had also come in, and we were sort of traveling with two casts at the same time, which was kind of a fun way of kind of wrapping up that first year, starting the second year, kind of passing the torches over, so to speak. And it was cool. I got to go to their like final put-in rehearsal in our last city, and it was cool seeing the show with just a whole different company. A couple of the understudies as well had moved up to the onstage roles for the second year, and it was cool just watching them on the other side, because some of them I'd performed with many times, but I hadn't actually gotten to see them. And it's cool watching the show with another cast after you've done it. Obviously I'd seen it before at first, but after you've done it, it was really cool experience. Yeah.
And Andy saying in two very different views, which that's such a great point, because I know whenever I've seen different shows, where you're sitting, the vantage point can almost tell a different story.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'd say in the music box, I feel like the prime seating is probably that first row of the mezzanine, just because it sits so center. But really, the music box theater is like designed in such a way that every seat just feels like the performance is delivered just for you. It's a really, really remarkable theater. It's turning 100 this year, so hopefully it'll get to celebrate with a real performance at some point before the end of the year. That is Irving Berlin's Music Box Theater. He built it himself with his own two hands. I don't think so, but it was his theater. That's why it's the Music Box Theater. And it's the idea of performing in any of these historic theaters, the Curran in San Francisco is also very old and historic. It was really cool, just kind of knowing you're in this space where other performers you might have seen or admired have performed, or maybe you saw something in that space, or it just is filled with all these kind of stories, or the ghosts of these stories. I think it's why people think, oh, the theater could be haunted, and that's why we have the ghost light, and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I think there's sort of that magic that I love about it. In some of the touring houses, people would sign underneath the dressing room stations, and you can kind of see, oh wow, who else was here, who signed this wall. Or a lot of the touring houses, I don't even remember what they're called, but if you go backstage at a tour, a lot of them have these painted on the wall of each show that visited, and everyone from the company and crew, they'll sign it. So we had those, a wall tag, maybe they called them a wall tag. We had some cool artists on the tour who would always create some cool ones for us. And you can see this is the tour that passed here 20 years ago or more. Yeah, it is cool to learn about the history of the physical theaters. I think it was Cleveland that actually has the second largest theater district in one condensed area. Technically, I'm not sure what the actual phrasing is, but it's because the Playhouse Square, it has maybe 5 different theaters that are all just in this one square, and they're all sort of connected. They might even be literally physically connected. But yeah, there's a lot of history that goes around with them. People talk about, oh yeah, Yul Brynner was here, and he had to have his dressing room painted red. It was just his protocol. It had to be painted red. So you do learn a lot of about those histories, and I'm a dork for the physical theater history, stuff like that. I think it's really cool. I've always been interested and fascinated by the history of the Broadway buildings, and I have favorites of my own, and I think I love that stuff.
Same here. I find it so fascinating. And a quick note about my seeing Dear Evan Hansen experience. I've been so fortunate to see it 3 times on Broadway. The first time was standing room, which I think is so underappreciated. I mean, I know that there's that physical aspect that not everyone can do, and that is completely, we need to make Broadway more accessible. But if you're able to do it, standing room for theaters, you're getting a great price ticket. You get to stretch and dance a little bit, which is my favorite part. And it was amazing. My first time seeing Dear Evan Hansen was 2019, and my standing spot was dead center. So I'm just standing in the back, dead center, get to see it, love it. Second time, we'd gotten these last minute seats, and it was last row orchestra. But then the third time was Jordan Fisher's first show, and that was bonkers. And we were second row of the mezzanine on the left. Perfect. I mean, like you're saying, the way first, second, third row of the mezzanine, the angle is just so great. You get to really have that full experience of the whole stage show. Love it. And love seeing you.
Yeah. And it feels like they're just playing to you. I don't know. I think that's kind of where I saw Pippin at that theater, in probably the second, third row of the mezzanine when I was maybe 16, 17. And just, it felt like they were just playing it to you. And it was really, really just magical. Yeah, standing room, I think it's worth investigating if you have the time. There's always a different policy. I remember doing it when Book of Mormon first came out, because I was I got to see this cast, and I got to see this show. Everyone's talking about this show. So when you can do it, and when you really want to see that show, especially if it's a hot one, and you're able to, I think it's totally worth it, and it is totally a nice way to get into a show, especially if it's one of those hotter shows that's newer. Yeah.
Exactly. And now this other time that I got to see you perform is what I've been using for advertising this episode, was Broadway Under the Stars. That was so much fun. Yes.
That was already kind of a while ago now too. I think that was one of the first public events or publicity events that we did when I joined the Broadway company. At least we did a bunch of them out on tour, obviously for each city. A lot of Dear Evan Hansen would partner with Microsoft. And actually Jared Kleinman would use a Microsoft computer during Sincerely Me, which I thought was great, and a nice nod. So that was really cool. We would do a few events, either at the Microsoft store. We got to tour the Microsoft kind of campus out in Seattle, actually, which was really cool. Yeah, that was awesome. There's always kind of a bunch of publicity events, and so one of them was Broadway Under the Stars, which happens around the holiday time. I guess it didn't happen this year, but the prior year had happened at those shops by Columbus Circle, around 59th Street area, kind of by the park. Um, and yeah, that was with, at that point, I was probably only a few weeks into that company, and Zach Pizer, I think, had just joined maybe that week, because he only joined maybe a few weeks after I had joined. But yeah, I loved working with both of those individuals very much. And that was just towards the end, as Alex was fading out as well. I think it was like he was like, yeah, this was my second Broadway Into the Stars, and I'd done this last year. But always fun to do those kind of publicity events for the show. I think people and just passerbys or fans love to find out about them. They love to come to them. And if there's people just shopping in the mall and they happen to be there strolling by, they say, oh, wow, this is great. Look, there's a little performance going on here. It's usually on a Monday so it's on like the off day for us. But, we're usually happy to go anyway because it's a fun little gig to do. And, it's promoting the show and getting people to come see the show, especially if if they hadn't seen that particular cast. Like, it's fun to kind of join and be like, hey, so I'm in the show now, so come on and see me if you haven't seen me in the show before. I don't know, I like doing those things. I always find it very fun.
Yeah. And I love that point too, because you do get to see a lot of understudies at those that, it's exciting to see different casts and different interpretations of these characters. And
Totally.
Broadway and Bryant Park, Broadway Under the Stars, those two are some of my favorite Broadway experiences because also, I mean, there's nothing like a Broadway show, of course, but this experience of everyone being kind of out of the element, but still make it personal to you and the audience. I love it.
Yeah, and I like how there's usually a selection of maybe 4 or 5 different shows, and you get kind of a taste, flavor, sneak peek of each one. If there's some tourist that's in Bryant Park, getting some food or whatever, and they happen to, I'm getting this. Oh, I like this song. Oh, maybe I'll see if I can try and snag a ticket to that while I'm in town. Oh, or I like this one. That maybe that's a good one to go see. So it's definitely a great way to advertise just for Broadway in general. And not just a specific show. So I think that's always great. I think trying to get more people to come to the theaters is definitely always good, and something that we're going to need to continue to do as people are continuing to get vaccinated, feeling more and more safe about returning to the theaters, which is already slowly, softly happening, just a little bit. There's been, I think, at least 2 small pop-up shows in not sold out Broadway theaters, but they are slowly happening, which is definitely like a sign that we're moving into the right direction before we can, go and see Wicked again, or the shows that we know and think of when we think of Broadway, I guess.
Exactly. Oh yeah, I love that. So okay, we are going to talk about more than Dear Evan Hansen in just a moment, but I have one final question, which is, as an actor, what is your favorite song to be in or moment of the show?
Ooh. Well, I definitely, like, I do love Sincerely Me, because I think it's just a fun burst of energy. I love Waving Through a Window because it's kind of like a warm up. It's kind of like our warm up moment of like everyone settles in. Like whenever a new understudy goes on or a new cast member joins, like we always do the waving walks and make sure everyone crosses at the same time and gets all their traffic right. I'm going through all the moments I like now. There's this one scene in Act 2 in school where Jared has some really funny lines. He references Fiddler on the Roof and he says "Miracle of Miracles." I think it's really delightful and just funny, almost as if Jared and Evan were in Fiddler on the Roof together in middle school, which is very funny to me. Yeah, I like Good For You. It's kind of Jared's final moment. And you kind of see a little more of his vulnerable side, which is nice to show. Yeah, I guess that's kind of an overview of some of the moments I like, for sure.
And I love those all from the audience. So great choices.
Nice.
So let's talk about your new music, because we started off this episode with it, but I want to go deeper. Like how that all happened? How'd you come up with them? They are just delightful.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, it's only been the past few weeks. I know we gotten interrupted when I heard the echo. Yeah, I've been writing a musical for for the past few years called Mazkapan, which, long story short, tells a short story, or tells a story of two best friends who find themselves stuck in this magical town. And I've really been working on that and finessing it, and we've even workshopped it at Texas State University, which is awesome. But as we know, the sad reality right now is that live theater and live musicals as we know them are not really being produced. Some are being developed and workshopped, and I feel like I've definitely done a lot of workshopping, and I will continue to do that with that show. But I think there was a part of me that always wanted to release just my own music, and I think aiming for something that could be a finished product to really show and showcase to the world and share with the world was something really appealing to me as well. Because, even with the musical I've been writing, I can show someone a demo of a song that happens in the show, but without the context and without really seeing the full vision, it's not really done yet. It's not really finished. So there was something really appealing to me about sharing a finished product with the world. And a lot of this music came, from this whole pandemic and this COVID experience. And I think it's part of this kind of renaissance we're entering in this artistic world. I think we're going to see a lot of stuff like this. So I wanted to kind of deliver some hopeful messages with some boppy, fun tunes. I wanted to get back to the olden days of like just a guitar and a bass and a piano and horns. I'm a sucker for horns. And, I just kind of this really old school, almost Stevie Wonder-esque vibe, where it's just making music. And I wanted to just kind of bring some joy, the first song is getting back on track, getting back to life, getting back on track, from this pandemic, and as we're getting vaccinated and kind of returning to our lives as we once knew them, even though it'll be a different return. This recent song I just released this past Friday called Dream With Me, about really the message of how, we might be in masks and we might be, in this weird funk right now, but it's still okay to dream, and it's still okay to smile, and it's still okay to sing. And I think that's really important. And sometimes we need that reminder, and we need to allow ourselves to do that. So I really just wanted to deliver some hopeful messages with some fun tunes and some music that people could enjoy. And I could link it to all my social profiles, and it'll live there. And if anyone wants to give a listen, they certainly can, and they can continue to listen and share it with all their friends and someone they love or someone they don't love. But yeah, I think that was kind of where it all came from. I wanted to sort of have it fit a little bit with the brand. I love cartoons. I hired an excellent cartoonist to do some really cool artwork for this, which I'm really proud of. I love the way it looks. I think it really fits with kind of my brand, so to speak. Yeah, and that's kind of the basic spiel for now. There's 3 songs out. There will be another tune coming at some point very soon, but I won't reveal when. And yeah, I want to thank that. I think about 10,000 streams just on that first song, which is awesome. And I'm really just honored and humbled. And honestly, I'm less about the numbers at this point, and more just happy to share the songs with the world, and for whoever wants to listen can listen. And I find it so remarkable how it can reach so many different areas of the world. When I look at like the Spotify, where has your music been played, and I see, oh my gosh, people have listened in Germany and in all these other countries that I've never even been to or wouldn't even think of. And I think that's just the power of social media, whether it's Instagram or TikTok or all these platforms that can reach a lot of people. So it's been really a cool experience. It's been really cool releasing them and just kind of reminding everyone to smile and to sing and dance and just listen to some music. I think that's just kind of very much always been my MO, up my alley. Yeah.
We could all use that reminder, especially now. So I thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. If anyone wants to give a listen, they can find me on those music streaming platforms, or even on YouTube here. But yeah, I'm excited for the future of them and what might come. Perhaps some music video content in the future. But I'm very excited for that kind of just little avenue that I've created during this time. It's been a nice kind of way to make my own opportunity during this pandemic. So it's been really fun. Yeah.
And we are so grateful that you took this creative energy into this music, because if anyone hasn't listened yet, I mean, we've got maybe 15 minutes left of this interview. So just wait like 15 minutes and then celebrate your post show, get a little music going, sing and dance. It's great.
For sure. Absolutely. That's all I really want is for people to just listen and have, hopefully it brings some joy to them. It gives them a smile. If it could make someone smile, then I feel like my work is done. Always love a bop and some horns, truly. Yeah, me too. I love a good bop and I love horns, and I feel like we don't get enough of it these days, and I don't know if that's just people aren't craving it or if people just aren't making it. So I figured I'd give it a try and see how people respond. Yeah.
Yeah. And, as you're saying the Stevie Wonder, I was getting those vibes, and I was also getting Michael Bublé vibes, which I really loved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's definitely kind of experimenting almost with a Michael Bublé. There's the second song that's kind of a ballad that almost has this like Bruno Mars, Michael Jackson vibe. There's, I love Lawrence, who I think they use a lot of horns and almost have a theatrical quality. I love, I'm trying to think of other, this recent one is almost Kirk Franklin inspired. It's sort of like a almost an anthem, a kind of, get up and celebrate, kind of reminding you to get up and celebrate and dream. So yeah, some of those are the musicians or musical groups I've sort of been inspired by for these particular songs. But I'm really happy with the way they came out, and I just wanted to sort of punch them out, and I did it like 3 weeks back to back of like, here you go, here's a few tunes, and they all have a color that go with them, and a nice cartoon, like I was saying. So I feel like it's a real treat. So if you get a chance to listen, I'd be honored if you listen.
Definitely. And, speaking of the nice image in the cartoon, I also want to talk about that photo that I used for the cover photo that Andy Henderson took with like the many Jareds. How did that come about?
Andy Henderson is really a brilliant choreographer, photographer. I'm okay. Photographer. He's a brilliant photographer, New York City based. I believe left the city briefly during this pandemic period, but will return. Yeah, I did a shoot with him now probably a year and a half ago. It was while I was in that Broadway company of Evan Hansen during that time. And, he was saying, hey, this might be a fun idea. Let's do like this composite photo where I'll get a picture of, you, and then we'll get like 13 other pictures of you around this couch, and then I'll composite it and put them all around this couch. I was like, that sounds really fun and totally like, up my alley, and I'd love to do something like that. And he put that together. It was totally his idea. He crushed it. He's taken a few photos that I've still been using. I really love his work and would be happy to shoot with him again. And if anyone needs a New York photographer, or at least when he's back, I would absolutely recommend him so much. He's just great. I miss doing photo shoots like that, getting to meet photographers, and they kind of get to figure out your personality, and they see what they can capture of you. It's a cool kind of side of the business that I don't know a whole lot about, and I'm not much of a photographer other than, my iPhone that has a crazy camera. But, I've always had a lot of respect for photography. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, it was such a fun, creative concept. I had to bring it up because I love when photographers.
It's really great. He really did an excellent job with it. The first time I saw it, I was like, wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. So something I saw on your bio, and tell me if I remember this right. Were you in Spider-Man 3?
I actually was when I was very, very little. I shot for this movie Spider-Man 3, which I don't even know if you can really see me in. It was like I was like an extra. Maybe I had a line that they shot me that was ultimately cut from the final editing floor. And I was probably only 10 years old. But yes, I did do that back when I was really little. And I remember meeting Tobey Maguire and Kristen Dunst, and James Franco was there, and I met Sam Raimi, and they're all very, very nice people, and I'm sure I looked a lot younger and different. But yes, that was something I did. And it's I remember I think there was like maybe 2 different days. There were kind of these crowd scenes, and one of them was shot in Madison Square Park, which I still walk by all the time. And it's funny to walk by and be like, "Oh right, I was here that one time when I was like really little, and it was like a big movie set going on." And yeah, it's fun. It's fun to look back at that, especially a movie like that was shot on site in that location. And now, of course, it's so different. I grew up really with the Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans. But now it's really all about the MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, which I also really love and think is super super dope. I really enjoyed WandaVision. Anyway, I digress. But yes, it's very cool how it all sort of comes back.
Yeah.
In terms of this entertainment, Disney, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I am right there with you. Grew up with those movies and then love, love, love MCU. WandaVision blew me away. Saw it twice already. Like I had to.
It's great. And that behind the scenes special is really, really, really
Yes.
awesome too.
So good. Yes. And I'm just remembering I saw Spider-Man 3 in theaters in New York City, opening night or first showing. And everyone was just so excited to be there. So cool to know that you were in that.
Yeah, I was back in the day.
Yeah. So I'm looking over a few other things, and Judy's saying we are all MCU fans here.
Word.
Yes.
Yeah.
So is there any musical or movie or something that, if you could be in it in the future would be like a dream role?
Oh my gosh. I've always said I'd love to play Seymour in Little Shop of Horrors. I think getting eaten by a giant puppet would just be so fun on stage. I love that idea. It's definitely a favorite of mine. I love puppets. I love their use in theater and the kind of imaginative world they can inspire and bring. Actually, one I've really wanted to play, which I feel like I'm slowly starting to age out of, is Eugene in Brighton Beach Memoirs. I love that trilogy or those Neil Simon plays. I think that's a really fun one as well. And of course, one big one would be the role of Harry in Mazgapan, which I wrote. We got time for that. We got time for that. I'm slowly feeling okay. Like I don't have to rush it, and that's great. But I don't know. Some other ones, like I don't know. Jamie in the Last 5 Years would be fun to sing, I guess. Or like Toby and Sweeney Todd would be a lot of fun. Again, very. I love like Little Shop and Sweeney, those kind of dark, humorous shows. Sliding down that chute or whatever it is. I just think that's so cool. I also am just a Sondheim geek, as most theater geeks probably are. So to do any of that work and kind of immerse yourself in that music would be such a gift in any of those shows, really.
Yeah. Wow. Those are all great ideas. I hope to see you in them soon.
For sure.
So, you mentioned also earlier about like doing some voiceover work and all these things, but what is kind of the difference as you're acting or singing or doing this if you're doing voiceover work or you're in a film or TV show versus on Broadway or a tour?
Yeah. I think actually for voice work, it's not so different than any of the others. I've slowly been learning that more and more. It's like you still have to be how do I phrase it? In the moment, or that's a terrible way of phrasing it, but it's you still have to be living that life of that character, even if it's just your voice. You want it to be real. You want to really be saying what you're saying, and you want to really mean what you're saying. You want to know what you mean when you're saying. I think those are some of the biggest things I've kind of been picking up lately about just knowing what it is that you're saying when acting, so that it feels like you're just really authentically living that life. And the only main difference, or the biggest difference, I would say, between theater and film TV is just obviously it's not live on film, so obviously in theater, there is that projecting aspect, and there's that, sort of a little bit playing out to an audience, but really still you want to be connected to the, what's happening in that scene, or that, it's just kind of a slice of life. And you want to just be caught living that life. In some ways, film can be more authentic because you can just kind of drop in and be having that conversation, and the camera just captures it. And that's the thing, the camera doesn't lie. So you're never performing to the camera unless it's literally that Ferris Bueller, like talking directly to the camera. But I'd say that's, they're not that different. I think stylistically, film and TV differs from Broadway or theater in general. And then I'd say with voice work and voiceovers, yeah, it's kind of the same throughout. I'd say voiceover, it's animated, so you want to have an animated voice, so to speak. So in that regard, maybe it's similar to theater in that projecting aspect. I don't know if any of this is making sense. I feel like it's making sense as I'm saying it. It's sometimes harder to articulate these thoughts, but sometimes it's very helpful for me because it like reminds me, oh right, what am I doing when I do this? Or yeah, it's a great question.
No. Yeah. Thank you. No, I love it. I loved your answer.
Cool.
So this is the part where we talk about any nonprofits or charities you want to shout out.
Absolutely. Obviously, as you know, the Actors Fund, really great organization. Definitely beneficial for actors. It's a tough time for a lot of actors right now, which is why I'm always a fan of, trying to make those opportunities if you can. But if you can't, the Actors Fund is really good at trying to help out those who are in need right now. And as well, we have Broadway Cares, Equity Fights AIDS, once 2 organizations, now 1 very strong organization. Obviously, they're doing a lot with coronavirus and the pandemic right now, and they do help, obviously, with fighting HIV and AIDS, which is obviously terrible and has plagued the community for a while now. But currently, Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS is actually doing a Red Bucket matchup, I believe it's called. And a lot of your favorite stars from TV, film, Broadway are participating. Eric McCormick, you might know from Will and Grace, Jason Alexander from Seinfeld, Jordan Fisher from Dear Evan Hansen, and a slew of other things. They're all participating in this event. It is excellent because they will match your donation. Whatever you donate, they will match. If you're like me and you can't pick your favorite, I love Jordan Fisher, I love Jason Alexander, why not donate to both buckets? It's a really beautiful organization. I always loved giving that speech, either on tour or on Broadway. It was always definitely an honorable thing to do. I think I gave the speech the night before we shut down. And I definitely made a hand sanitizer joke because it was funny back then, and slowly it's gotten less funny. But anyway, those are some great not-for-profit organizations that are definitely worth investigating in, especially if you love theater and the arts like I do, and you care about the future of the arts, because it's definitely going to come back, but it's going to come back differently, and it's not going to just be a flip of the switch, lights on the way it shut down. So I would definitely recommend looking into those if you have the means, or even if you don't, just to take a look at what the organizations are all about. They're very, very special, and they're very, very helpful for our communities.
Yes, beautifully said. They're doing really, really great work for actors and beyond. Everyone in the theater community are really on them, and it's a tough time for everyone, for sure. Yeah. But any way that you can help is greatly appreciated. And, we're talking about all of this music and theater stuff, but this is what's keeping us alive in so many ways, emotionally, physically. We need theater, we need music, we need the arts to survive. So any way you can help is greatly appreciated.
Definitely.
Yeah. Is there any let's have you share all of the places that people can find you on social media. This is your time to promote away.
Cool. Absolutely. Well, yeah, if you check me out anywhere, I'm at Jared B. Goldsmith, B as in boy. That's my handle on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Twitch. I'm on Twitch. I am on Twitch. I play video games live. You can play video games with me, playing with a few other friends that are now streaming on Twitch. It's a fun world. If you don't know about it, check it out. Take a look, investigate. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, if you go over to Instagram or any of those platforms, I believe I got a link in the bio that will connect you to any of the other socials as well. It's got my Spotify, my Twitter, the Discord community, which is where you can play video games with me on Twitch as well. There's a bunch of different ways you can connect with me. If you like any of my stuff, you can totally check it out on any of those platforms. There's music, there's Instagram, there's TikToks, which I've been tic-tacking away at and tic-tac-toeing, and I don't even know what it is, but it's a lot of fun, and it's silly, and that's what I'm all about, fun and silliness. So yeah, at Jared B. Goldsmith, check it out. I'm there. Shoot me a DM or an email if you want to collaborate on anything. I'm always open to different opportunities and possibilities to make some fun stuff. So yeah, I know it was kind of general, but I'm there and I'm out there, and you can find me. So feel free to take a look.
That's perfect. And y'all can find me at bwaySHO. That's bwaySHO, and bwaySHO podcast for all of your bwaySHO the podcast needs. It's been so much fun throughout quarantine doing these interviews, and I want to shout out, I have some of the Showtreons on this call today, which are the bwaySHO Patreon squad. So all of your support has been so wonderful. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I thank you so much for coming on today. It's been such a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have anything else that you came into today wanting to make sure to say to your fans?
Oh my gosh. Thank you. If you're out there, if you've been following me or watching anything, if you've been listening to music, thank you. Thank you for being a part. I hope you're staying well. I hope you're staying safe. I know, like we were saying, it is a tough time for everyone, whether you're an actor or just anyone. It's tough out there. So just be kind to each other, be safe, be well, and we're all going to be back to normal soon. You know, it'll get there in time. I have my vaccination appointment today, which is awesome. I'm super, super excited. I'm going to feel so great. Even if I feel sick, I'm going to feel good about it. But yeah, that's mostly it, I think. I want to thank you so much again for having me on your show, and getting to connect with you and a bunch of other folks. And yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else to say. If you're interested in anything else I do, like I said, you can feel free to pop me an email or a DM or whatever. And yeah, and I'll try and get back.
Brilliant. And we all say congratulations and woohoo with your vaccine shot. Is so exciting.
I know, I'm very excited. I got one dose, one and done. I'm really excited about it. Yay! I've never been so excited to get a shot in my life.
Right?
And I'm not throwing it away. I think there's a Lin-Manuel NBC Dr. Fauci special that's happening or happened, like about getting your shots and rolling up sleeves and doing the whole thing, which I think is so fun and just so appropriate. I just can't wait for us to all be back to life, and I think we're all going to come back just so warm and loving and welcoming, and people miss hugs, people miss that human interaction, and it's partially why I think we go to the theater, to share those experiences with one another. You can watch Hamilton on Disney Plus and it's amazing, but when you sit in that real theater and you experience that performance that night, there's nothing like it. And I think we're gonna come back, especially even with those shows that we might have seen pre-COVID, and we're gonna all witness the same story, the same production perhaps, but we'll all be on the other side of this, and we'll all be different, the actors, performers, crew, and audience included, and I think that's going to be really special, and that's going to mean something too. So again, like I said, I'm excited for us all to be back, and I think it's going to be really, really, really awesome.
Yes, I can't wait to be in the room where it happens.
Exactly, me as well.
Do you have, last question. Do you have a favorite show that you can't wait to see besides from Dear Evan Hansen?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the day Wicked reopens, I'm going to be there. I don't know why. I just feel like I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be looking at that dragon. I'm going to be looking at those monkeys, and I'm going to see Elphaba, and I'm going to see Glinda, and I'm just going to cheer and probably cry my eyes out. And I can't wait to see Wicked again. I don't know why. I just, there's something so magical and whimsical about that Wizard of Oz-esque show, and I really, really miss it very dearly. I love a lot of shows. For some reason, there's some I think there's something about me wanting to see Wicked. I don't know. And
Yeah.
obviously Dear Evan Hansen and all those other shows. I just can't wait for them to all be back.
I can't wait. We'll be back. Yes, I can't wait for Galinda to be. It's good to see me, isn't
Yeah,
it?
there'll be a large standing ovation for probably a minute or more at that point, and I hope to be a part of it.
Well, thank you for taking the time to chat with us. It has been an absolute pleasure getting to know you.
Absolutely. Likewise, and thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thanks. And thank y'all for watching. It's been so great seeing all of your comments and engaging. It's been so wonderful. I hope all of you take care of yourselves, stay safe, wear a mask. Hopefully you'll get your vaccination soon, and take care of yourselves. We'll see you at the show.
Indeed. Bye now.
Bye.